Hey, Shalom fam, peace and love. Just want to come on one more time. Um, want to talk about nationality. Absolutely free. All over the world. The thing that people love to talk about. So, I definitely agree with that, and think about even doing a nationality webinar or conference pretty soon, and getting somebody in to talk about trust and bundle that in, and a few other things maybe. But let's go in on nationality. Um, Basically, I want to talk about it from a different perspective. Um, like I like to do, but basically from the standpoint of what I wish someone would have told me when I first got information about nationality. And basically, that is the intricacies and complications that come with the public and the private. And that's more of the people teaching nationality in general mostly only teach one side of the coin. And we're able to operate on both sides. It's just about how you operate and how you operate in contracts, really. So it's nothing that we can't do as Moors. It's just about doing it the proper process, reserving our rights, things of that sort. So sorry about that. But basically, like I was saying, most people only teach one side of the coin, and it's because they only learn that one side. And the biggest problem with that is that most that only teach one side, they teach that side and they teach the other side is the devil, or something along them lines, where you shouldn't be messing around, with that other side because it's irrelevant or it doesn't bring results, and that's just not true. The thing is, it's just depending on how you are set up and how you're trying to operate in the future really determines more when it comes to the method that you're going to go about proclaiming your nationality, whether taking a private process or a public process. Excuse me. And the thing is, whether you're going through a temple or not, whether you're going through the courts or not, is all determined on how you operate. So the relationship that you have with the straw man and state public licensing plays the biggest determination on what method it is you need to take. So people that have licensed professions that say have to have a driver's license like a CDL, people that are state licensed in real estate, insurance, things of that sort, where they operate with a license, well, they need to take more of a public process, and even more so, people that are going to operate in government positions, because when you operate in these certain positions, they will only respect certain documents. So it's not a problem of necessarily getting the documents, but it's how you fill out forms, how you fill out the contract, basically. So when you fill things out as a citizen, or using your social security number, is different implications. So you should know and establish your relationship with the Social Security Administration in your proper status if that's the way you have to operate, either beforehand or there's ways of going about it, after the fact. But on the flip side of the coin, there are people that want to live totally off the land, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. There's lots of people that operate like that. The thing is, we can do both as Moors, or a combination of this or that, or transition from private to public or public to private. It just depends on how you want to operate, and it also goes into the definition of what public and private is. And I'm going to have to do a whole video on that breaking it down and how they even flip the definition of public and private in general, because in our everyday conversation as Moors, most people don't think about it when they'll say something like, I'm going to put this on official public record, talking about nationality, affidavits, or things of that sort, which is absolutely true. You're putting it on the public record in a sense, but at the same time, we also know that the governments are private corporations. So is it really a public record? Well, it's public in the sense of what they're calling public now, since they did the flip, and that goes into like the Organic Act, back when they carved out the 10 square miles of DC, and you can check that out, just as a reference point to uh, get a little bit more understanding on that. But basically, when they created the District of Columbia and the United States Corporation, they flipped what they call public and private. So the real private is the republic, and the public, or what they call public, is private, because you're dealing with private corporations. And until you get a thorough understanding on that, it's hard to take steps of correcting your status properly and understanding what is what. So you need a certain foundation, and not a cookie cutter process for nationality and everybody that comes to you, whether you're dealing in a temple or out of a temple. So the example of the temple, right now, I would say, you know, if the temple is filed with the state, it's public to a certain extent. So you could say you made a public declaration, of your nationality, but technically it's private too. We can go into that, but in essence, uh, that's private. And if the temple that you're with doesn't tell you how, or give you instructions on how to operate with your title, elder, bay, outside of that temple, and you just go do a court order name change, you could miss out on a few things, because just changing your name alone with the courts does not necessarily change your status, because you need to still proclaim your nationality. So if you're going to do that court order process, there's nothing wrong with it, but there are things that you need to include in there. And we have an exhibit or affidavit that you can include, and this is free, over a year been giving it out, to anyone that wants it. And we use it, the affidavit one, specifically to bridge the public and private gap. But let's get back into, the contents, because basically when you do the court order name change, it's only a certain amount that you can put on there for the reason for your name change. So to make it short, we just have, a short phrase to, see the exhibit, whatever you want to name it, like Exhibit A or Exhibit 1 or something like that there. So you can put on there the things that are necessary for not just proclaiming your nationality, but your status as well, your citizenship status and all of that, as well as your religious reason of why you're doing it, so they are not able to even interfere. So, that in essence, dealing with the temple would be Act 6, when it says that, with us, we must all proclaim our nationality to be recognized by the government and the nations of the earth. So, you know, that there sounds like, you need to make it public, not just to use this title, and have it on your nationality card that you get from the temple, but to operate it, and there's also the oral statement where the prophet says, do all old, continue all your old business in that name, and do all the new business in your new name. So to be able to operate in both names, there's a process for doing that as well. So once you've done your court order name change or your private nationality affidavit and declaration and all of that, which you have to file that in with the courts too, and I'll get into the process on that in a little bit. But once you've done both of these, you still have to go and deal with all the different agencies that you're correcting your status with, uh, as well as you need to designate what your nationality is as a Moorish American. You're not Negro, black, or colored, and all of that. And as we know, that's all included in Act 6. So it gets in there. That's part of the content of the affidavit or the exhibit, depending on how you're doing it. As long as well as expatriation, the separation between your straw man and a municipal corporation and your natural person. That is very important. So we make sure that all of this stuff was said in a way where it's accepted. So it's not that there's things that you have to do and hoops necessarily you have to jump through to do these things. What it is more of you're putting it in, giving them all of your notices, and giving them all the proper things that are not included with their documents when you're doing it through the court. Doing that court order name change, or if you're doing it just privately with the affidavit. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's also a few other private processes out there. I just want to state that for the record too, because I know like Moors, they put their name change in the newspaper. They file it that way for a couple weeks, and then you get an affidavit from that. But even still with that, you need to file that in the courts as well. So the way we do that, so where not only we file it, but it can be used to bridge the gap. If let's say you need to do some public and some private steps, is to file it in the proper place in the property records. And depending on the jurisdiction, it's different. Like out here near the Houston Corporation, they call it the personal records, but it's in the same office as the property records. They have a separate miscellaneous personal records filings where you can file it, and you're in the right place basically where you file it, and you can get what's called an exemplified certified copy, or they may say basically in the list of services they may call it an exemption certificate that you're getting with it, or the other name that they'll say also, they may call it authentication. Like there are certain states where you have to get your birth certificate authenticated on the county level. Well, this is the exact same process. It's just they call it different depending on the jurisdiction, so you just have to know what you're looking for. But same thing. So just like on a federal level, that anything that is notarized can be authenticated, that goes on the county level as well. So we're basically getting our nationality affidavits authenticated, or we're getting them exemplified, which exemplified the process, which happens is there's basically a county judge or the elected county judge and clerk both sign off on your nationality affidavit on a certificate that they give you that's part of it basically like attached to the front in a similar manner as authentication, and they're stating that your nationality affidavit is in due form. So let's say you do operate in the private, but you need a state ID for whatever reason you need it. Well, you could use that now instead of the court order name change to go and change it and get that document updated, not just your name but the proper status with the ID. So you're initially amending the contract when you give them your documents, because they have to scan them in, and everything that I mentioned earlier was in there already, along with all rights reserved and the things that go along with that. So it's not necessarily as big of an issue as people think when you know proper steps of doing things, how to reserve your rights, how to operate in contracts, how to fill out the forms at these places when you go to update your status with them. So, like I love to say, there's nothing we can't do as Moors. It's all proper process. And that's what I wish people would have told me. When I first learned about nationality and proclaiming your nationality. It's a lot more intricate when it comes to stepping outside of your own personal property or stepping outside of your temple when you have to operate in commerce or operate in the real world when you travel, in between, places where you domicile and places where, you may do business and things of that sort. There's a difference. There's a dual jurisdiction you have to understand that's there, and it's because of our treaty of peace and friendship. So, even with the right to travel, like, yes, we all have the right to travel and be unencumbered, but at the same time, because of that treaty, we gave them a certain limited jurisdiction when it comes to commerce. And when it comes to commerce, travel falls under there. So they have the right to basically regulate that when it comes to like the people that actually need driver's licenses and things of that sort. Now they do overextend, but you have to know how to assert your rights as well. But we also have to understand that they do have jurisdiction when it comes to um, what would be considered extreme public safety hazard. So if you're operating outside of those bounds, then you have the right to be stopped and questioned and this and that because you may be drunk and about to kill someone or something along those lines, But as long as you're not, outside of that and causing no commotion for no one else that would be harm to their person or property, then, if you're in your proper person and know the jurisdiction you operate, then it shouldn't be much of an issue, and that all goes back into nationality and knowing who you are. And when you learn how to be competent and operate like that, there's less of an issue. We have ways of going about that and putting, the sheriff on notice where they put everyone under them on notice. I have videos on that, so y'all can definitely go back and check it out. Uh, so, with that, people, I'm a yield for the night, get some rest. It's really hot out here in Texas, almost 100 degrees today. I've been up riding around all day in the sun, but I wanted to get this out, and I promised it in the earlier video. But with that, I'm a yield, fam. Peace and love.